Hi folks, this is Ronnie Feldman, your professor, and I'm going to show you in this video how to do the first layer of a landscape painting. Now I've already gotten my palette set up. I just have the colors I'm going to be using for this first pass on the palette and nothing else. I've got my water, my brushes, and my rag nearby, so everything's placed conveniently so I don't have to make any weird contortions or do anything uncomfortable in order to make my painting. I've got my painting up at a comfortable height as well, and I'm not using any fancy materials here. I prefer to use rather inexpensive materials when I'm demonstrating, or because I think as a student, you shouldn't have to worry about the cost of every paint stroke you're making, right? You want to be able to make mistakes without worrying too much about them. So I'm going to start out by using just some yellow ochre paint with a lot of water. And I want this paint to be very transparent. Yellow ochre is great because it tends to disappear when you paint more layers on top of it. And we're going to be working in multiple layers here, probably doing 3 or 4. It's transparent and easy to wipe out in case you make a mistake. So this is all about keeping things very loose, very general, and working from big to small. And as we build each layer, we're going to add more details and become more specific and hone down our choices. So in my photograph that I'm looking at here, I'm just going to kind of find where things are touching the edges because it gives me a good starting point. I'm going to start from the biggest objects first, which in this case is a big rock, this big Eagle Rock up in Topanga Canyon. And I can see it touches the edge here, probably about 1/3 of the way down or so. And it comes over just about, less than 1/4 in. And then I can see it comes down to the bottom about halfway through, maybe a little bit less. Now you don't have to be right on with it. This is a painting after all. So if you don't get it just right, you can correct it and move it around if you need to. Right? This is a painting. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not. Nobody's gonna see the photograph right next to your painting. Right? It's gonna exist separately unless you want them to see it for some reason. And I'm using a fairly big brush here, right? Because I'm not doing detail work right now. And just kind of keeping it very light and loose. You might just be able to barely pick that up on the camera. And you can see that I've already made a correction, making this come up a little bit higher because I think that'd be a little bit more interesting. Give it a little more power and strength there. There we go. Let's maybe have this stick out a little bit more. There we go. I like that. Okay. Then I can see that we've got the horizon here, not the horizon, this hill, coming just about 1/4 of the way up from this side, and it comes down and kind of comes right below, just right behind the rock over here where it slopes down. And I might make it stick up a little bit higher just because I kind of give it a little more of an emphasis. I think that'd be nice. And then I can see that there's another hill here that comes up just a little shy of halfway up this rock face. There it goes. So that's going to go right there. There's another hill right below it here. And so you can see just the main thing is just keeping everything really loose and just kind of getting a loose kind of drawing in here. Get some of this foliage in, some bushes down here. And I don't want to go any darker until I feel fairly confident with where I've put things. Because this is the best time to make corrections. It only gets a little harder later on as you've added more stuff in. So keeping these bushes very light and loose, being kind of feathery with my brush. There we go, and we've got some more little rolling hills down here. Now, I'm going to use some of the a different color for the sky. I'm going to use a cobalt blue. You might choose to use a different blue, but I think I want kind of a warmish feeling sort of blue. And I'm not painting with yellow ochre there because I want it to be, if I put the yellow ochre first and then I do blues on top of it, it's going to turn out kind of greenish later on, right? These colors can be kind of transparent. So I'm going to keep my cool areas relatively cool and my warm areas relatively warm to start. And I'm keeping this still very thin and transparent, just so I can paint over it later on or fix any mistakes, just like I did with the rocks. And like I said, I don't have to paint every single cloud, just the ones I'm most interested in. If it's dripping down in some areas, that's fine. I can take my rag, which I have nearby, and kind of wipe it away if I need to. And I very likely will change some of this later on as I start feeling my way through the composition and see there might be some parts that I might want to change, just to maybe make the composition flow in a different way. And at this point, I also want to make the horizon line, which I can see comes up just a little bit below this, right above this hill. And we can see the island out there. That's Catalina, I believe. And it's pretty bluish and cool back there, so I'm going to just use the same blue to mark that in as well. There we go. And you might have some of these hills that are kind of coolish too, so I might make them a little bit cool too. Just do the closest you feel is right as far as keeping this warm versus cool for now. If you've painted it very thinly, it won't really matter too much, as it should be pretty easy to paint over that later on. And down here, some of the sky, it's all pretty light. It's going to be pretty close to white later on, so. And for the, I'm going to do a little bit more work on this hill, kind of figure out where some of these rock faces are, just lightly putting them in with yellow ochre still. I'm leaving any highlights white, just not really addressing those quite yet. They can just stay white using the white of the canvas. I'm not using any white paint right now. There we go. It's very simple, but that's just about all the start I need. Not too much detail yet. Not much even attention to shadow, just a very general sort of diagram of where the main objects are. And as I'm going to step back and just see if I'm generally happy where I put everything. Is there anything I'd like to fix? Because now is the time to do it.